Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We roll into hour number 2, and that can mean only one thing, Vince. It is rapid fire time. Are you ready?
Oh, let's roll, baby. You had this to me early today, I felt like.
What do you mean early?
Like, I think you send the stuff, and I feel like it came earlier than usual. I don't know.
Well, there's not, with mailbag, there's not a first hour,
True. That's a good point. And earlier is relative because I didn't get up my normal time. So
right.
That also might be part of it as well.
Before we get into the regularly scheduled first question, we were just talking about Jeremiyah Love and, Heisman and stuff like that, because, that's what we talk about here these days. And someone was asking how many yards he needs to catch Vegas Ferguson for the single season rushing record. Vegas Ferguson had 1,437 yards in 1979. Jeremiyah Love, going into this game, has 1,306 net rushing yards. Of course, that's, take away the losses and all that. So he's sitting at 1,306. So he needs 132 yards to pass Vegas Ferguson going into the Stanford game.
Have that in the first half.
I know. Likely. Last week, Jesse and I, the question that we had was, with 2 games to go, how many quarters of football would it take? We weren't anticipating 171 yards in a short amount of time on 8 carries against Syracuse. So 132 seems very doable for Jeremiyah Love going into this game.
Very doable. Very, very, very doable. I'm actually interested to see what FanDuel has for his number.
Does he get it by halftime, I think, is the question.
Seriously.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so rapid fire time. Let's get into these questions. Fill in the blank. It's blank that On3 college football reporter Ari Wasserman says, quote, "What the college football playoff committee is doing to Miami is the biggest injustice in the system's history." End quote. Vince D'Addario, go.
Lazy. It's lazy. Like, that's a lazy take. And the only thing that is what was his exact words about what is it? The biggest injustice? The biggest injustice is for anybody that thought that Miami should have beaten Louisville or SMU. Like, win games you're supposed to win. And then we don't have this situation. I win one of those games and we don't have this situation. It's not an injustice. Play better. Don't lose 2 games in November.
Right.
Don't lose 2 out of 3.
What injustice is being carried out? I mean, it's part of your, like, by everyone's justification, should Florida State be in the college football playoff because they had a head-to-head win over Alabama? Like,
lazy, man. It's just lazy.
Exactly. And, look, I mentioned this at the start of the show, but I feel like I've got to mention it again because it's only been 4 years since we had a similar situation with Michigan and Michigan State. Those 2 teams were undefeated at the end of October. They played at the end of October. Michigan State beat Michigan head-to-head. But then the following week, Michigan State turned around and lost to Purdue. And so at that point, both Michigan and Michigan State each had 1 loss. But the College Football Playoff Committee ranked Michigan ahead of Michigan State in spite of the fact that Michigan State just had a head-to-head win a week earlier. And there was some outcry about that. Like, these 2 teams just played. How did this happen? Well, as it turned out, the playoff committee was right, because what they kept saying was, yeah, Michigan State had this head-to-head win 2 weeks ago, but we're watching these 2 teams right now, and we feel like Michigan is better. And it was only a week later. But then a couple weeks after that, Michigan State got their doors blown off by Ohio State. They lost like 56-7 or something like that. And then because Ohio State and Michigan play every year, Thanksgiving weekend at the end of the season, Michigan finished the regular season by beating Ohio State. The playoff committee was vindicated. Michigan went on to the college football playoff. So again, it's only been 4 years, and you had a head-to-head situation where the team that won the head-to-head was ranked behind the other team because that same team that won the first time, they went out and lost to another team. And that is exactly what has happened with Miami. Yes, Miami beat Notre Dame to begin the season, but then they lost 2 teams to to two teams that they should have beaten. So let's not act like this kind of thing has never happened before. It happened only 4 years ago. And I'm tired of this whole Miami argument. You're not the better team right now. That's just like anyone who's watching these teams can see they're not the better team right now. Like Miami just played Syracuse a few weeks ago. Did they win a fairly comfortable game against Syracuse? Yeah, but Notre Dame, we all saw what Notre Dame did to Syracuse last week. They demolished that same Syracuse team. Notre Dame is playing better right now. End of story.
Well, and I mean, there are multiple not scenarios, but there's multiple examples just in the top 25 right now where there was head to head and the team that lost is ranked ahead. Like, I'm pretty sure USC beat Michigan. Am I wrong? Did I imagine that game happening?
You're right.
And Michigan is ranked 2 spots ahead of USC. How come the Trojan fans are all up in arms about the fact that, USC is ranked behind Michigan? You know what I mean? Like, again, multiple examples. Alabama and Florida State, to your point. There's you can analyze a team and use that as a data point. That is not the be-all, end-all.
Not the only data point. Right.
Right.
That's what, was the season over after the first week? I mean, you have other games that have to be evaluated. Again, just like with Florida State and Alabama, because if all you're doing is going off head-to-head, then Florida State should be in the college football playoff, even though they have a worse record than Alabama right now. Sometimes the worst team ends up winning. And then you go on. Like, is anyone going to argue that Alabama's not a better team right now than they were at the beginning of the season when they lost to Florida State? It's the same thing. It's just that Florida State obviously didn't hold up its end of the deal and have a better season. Everyone thought, well, maybe Florida State's back, but it took not long to figure that out. But Alabama's still a pretty good team in spite of the fact that they lost to Florida State at the beginning of the season. Notre Dame is a very good team in spite of the fact that they happened to lose to Miami at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and guess what? Miami was ranked ahead of Notre Dame until they lost 2 games.
Yeah.
To opponents that they should not have lost to.
Once you start losing games, it changes things. It changes the whole that's just the way it is.
Right.
Yeah. So in the chat, we got this in the mailbag and we didn't get it in the mailbag portion of the show, but Casey, that's a winner, says, I don't know a lot about this new college football playoff system. Can you tell me something about it?
I mean, it's very similar to what it was last year. The only difference is you don't have to be a conference champion to get the bye. And it's just going to be a straight ranked situation all the way down pretty much to 10. And then the top 5 champions are all going to make the field wherever they happen to be ranked. And if they're not ranked in the top 12, they will replace whoever else needs to be replaced. So right now it's appearing as that the Big 10, the SEC, and the Big 12 will most likely have their champion as a top 12 team, and the ACC and whoever the group of 5 ends up being will replace 11 and 12. It's really that simple.
Yeah, the top 5 highest ranked conference champions are guaranteed a spot in the playoff. And yeah, then like you said, it's straight seeding, but the conference champions are guaranteed a spot, kind of what's dicey right now, and why, like, for example, we continue to see Miami show up in like in the playoff rankings because they're the highest ranked ACC team right now. So they're a placeholder because they are also not in position right now to even make it to the ACC championship game, barring some things happening this weekend. Right now, they're currently tied for 4th place with Georgia Tech in the conference standings, but Georgia Tech has the tiebreaker right now. So
yeah, I mean, so many things have to happen, and the moons and the planets all need to be aligned for Miami to even make the championship of the ACC, and it's probably not going to happen. So they're going to have to get an at-large bid, which means they're going to have to be in the top 10. They're going to have to be ranked in the top 10 in order to make the playoff, period.
Right.
That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough sledding based on the teams that are ahead of them right now. Now, BYU has to play Texas Tech. I do not believe BYU can hold a candle to Texas Tech, so that's going to help Miami.
Not based on the first meeting between the two, but
exactly.
We'll find out.
But other than that, I don't see a whole lot of losses ahead of Miami right now, except for that one. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
We know Notre Dame plays Stanford this Saturday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time here on Sports Radio WSBT. Here's what Stanford interim head coach Frank Reich had to say about Notre Dame this week.
No doubt. It's a challenge. It's exciting. This is a good football team. Like when I put the tape on yesterday, I was like, boom. I mean, this is a real deal. I mean, this to me looks like the best team we've played all year. In the film I've watched, they're really well coached. You can just see it. It jumps off the tape. They're very well coached. They're high level. There's really no weakness. For me, mostly looking at their defense right now. I'll get to the offense a little bit later today. But looking at them defensively, really good across the board. So it's going to be a good challenge for us. I mean, it's a great opportunity, for us coming off a big win, an emotional win, to be able to lock down against, one of the better teams in the country and, see how we stack up.
Okay, Vince, that from Frank Reich is blank.
It's really interesting because Stanford has played a lot of teams that think they should be ranked higher than Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. You got BYU in there. They won 27-3 over Stanford. You've got Miami in there. They won 42-7 over Stanford. You got Pitt in there. They won 35-20 over Stanford. But according to Frank Reich, who has a pretty decent track record in the NFL as well, Notre Dame's the best team they've played.
It is weird, isn't it?
Wild.
I know. I know. Because Stanford played Miami the week after the Hurricanes lost to Louisville, and a week before Miami lost to SMU. Stanford was sandwiched right there in the middle. And it seems like a third-party head coach who's seen some of these teams that are being compared to each other might actually have a little bit, might actually know a little bit about them. Have a pretty good opinion about them.
I like Frank Reich. I think he's a decent coach. I think he sounds like a decent human being. Obviously we got a lot of Frank Reich when he was in Indianapolis, that kind of a thing.
Uh-huh.
Frank, I got a message for you, my guy. It's not personal. All right. It's not personal what Notre Dame's about to do to you on Saturday night. It's not personal, man. It just so happens you're the next faceless opponent and Notre Dame's got to take care of business. And I'm sure you'll get a prolonged bro hug from Marcus Freeman at the end of the game because he actually respects the work that you do. It's not personal, man.
Get a little bit more than our buddy Nardo got. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just feels like a third-party coach who's out there grinding tape would have a pretty good idea of who the better team is, since he has to scout these teams and put together a game plan every week. Some would say he's got a better idea than a lot of these chuckers who are out there that can't come up with another storyline other than, the Miami screw job, basically. So Notre Dame's been the better team for more than 75% of the season. Frank Reich knows it. Fran Brown knows it. I would bet most of the other coaches, not named Pat Narduzzi, would say it out loud as well, if you asked him. And I think probably if you gave old Nardo some true serum, he might say it as well. So, but yeah, you're right. Not personal at all. But it could get ugly Saturday night.
It very well could, because look, it's not going to be lost on Notre Dame or Marcus Freeman that Miami score that they had against Stanford at 42-7. That'll be right here, right in the back of his head. You don't coach for that, but you know that it exists. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'll be one of those kind of deals. Won't be a surprise.
But I mean, Notre Dame is just they're playing on another level right now. And it's like all these teams being compared against each other. It's like Notre Dame is just going out there like, I don't care. And I realize some people want to bring up Boston College. It's like Boston College was just kind of what Boston College is. Notre Dame was, they played their biggest rival. Then they had a bye week. They were coming back out of the bye on the road. That's a big rivalry game to Boston College. Some would say they're their biggest rival. And, things were just a little bit clunky for a while. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame won another game by double figures against Boston College. And then the next week, they stacked on top of that. They got, it's just Notre Dame's playing like the better team right now. It's just, you can't deny it.
And Stanford had their Super Bowl last week. was Cal Stanford.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. Like that was huge for them. They got their acts back and all that kind of
it
stuff.
was massive. Like that's their Super Bowl, especially with the way their season has gone. And they got
did you see any of the video, by the way, of like the ceremony where they like it's like the students were holding it and they do like this very formal sort of ritualistic passing of the the rivalry trophy to the other team when Stanford beat Cal last week? It was interesting. Yeah,
I don't know that I would allow Stanford students to have an axe.
Yeah, and it was just like students doing this, passing it from one to another, and then this big Stanford offensive lineman like jumped in. He's like, "Give me my axe," like that. It's kind of how it looked. So,
okay,
Vince, we didn't do a Shamrock Up, Shamrock Down show this week because it kind of felt a little bit gratuitous after a 70-7 win.
Yeah,
like how are you actually going to measure that? If you were given a like biggest Shamrock Up coming out of that game, who are you giving it to?
Chris Ash. How about that? Because I want to give it to the whole defense. And so I'll give it to Chris Ash on this one because I just think that he didn't really take his foot off the gas for the majority of the game until kind of late in the fourth quarter, kind of a deal. I wish he would have kept it on the gas a little longer, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I mean, that defense is playing lights out right now. It's what gives me the most confidence about Notre Dame in the playoff is their defense. Like I know they can score points, but I also think the defense is going to limit whatever offense Notre Dame ends up playing. So Chris Ash gets my Shamrock Up.
Man, Randall McMurphy says that means this show gets a Shamrock Down.
Whoa.
Is Randall McMurphy, by the way, like feels like he's got some history with the show, but I don't remember seeing that handle long ago. Like is he a new candidate for possibly the artist formerly known as DK?
Oh, well, that's possible.
I don't know. I don't know where you were going with that.
I would say timeout. Like no, you're entitled to your opinion. I don't know why we're going Shamrock Down all of a sudden.
I know, man.
It's harsh.
Yeah. Okay, so you're giving it to Chris Ash, which I think a lot of people are in there. I'm going to go with Jalen Stroman. Like in terms of players, I've got to go Jalen Stroman. The guy basically had a season in the first 5 minutes of the game, the way he played with a pick six and then blocking the punt, that shoots up into the air and Talich takes back for the touchdown. And, then like I think right in that whole sequence as well, he had that great open field tackle and he ended up being leading the team with 8 tackles. So, I think you're right. Like Chris Ash, his Shamrock continues to climb, but Jalen Stroman, that's the biggest game that he has had. So I've got to, coming off the bench because of the fact that Tay Johnson didn't get to play with the hand injury and all that stuff, I got to give it to Stroman for this week.
You know what? I got no problem with that. You got the pick six, the block punt, a great tackle. Like all in a row. Like you're right. He had a season in 5 minutes, like 5 minutes of real time too. Like it was so fast. But hey, there was a lot of defensive guys that I really, really like. I mean, there was a Drake Bowen series where he literally made the play on 3 straight plays to 3 and out. It just, like I said, a lot to go around, but Jalen Stroman, hats off to him for doing what he did when he hasn't really gotten a lot of playing time this year. And that's probably not what he had on his bingo card coming to Notre Dame. So.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go off the beaten path a little bit, and I'll give Jared Dawson a Shamrock Up as well. I thought that he played a really good game at the point of attack. Like Syracuse only averaged 2.2 yards per carry in that game. And, starts with the defensive line. Linebackers played great as well. But I think Jared Dawson, given an interior defensive lineman,
like that
Shamrock Up. Got to go with that. Hope you're having a great day before Thanksgiving, or maybe you're listening Thanksgiving morning to the podcast, whatever it happens to be. But appreciate you either way. And don't forget, of course, you can watch this show on the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel as well as the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel. And you can always interact in the live chat in either one of those platforms. And also don't forget, of course, we've got Notre Dame Stanford kicking off 10:30 this Saturday night right here on Sports Radio WSBT. And the game day show is from 6 until 9:30. You will get a dose, the last show of the regular season, of Tim, Jim, Eric, and Tyler. And their guests this week include Notre Dame great Jimmy Clausen, longtime former Notre Dame and NFL kicker John Carney, and consensus All-American linebacker Corey Minor. That is this Saturday, 6 to 9:30.
So, quick story about John Carney, if I may.
Okay.
We had him back when I used to do the game day show with those guys, and we had John Carney on. And he, first of all, he was a great interview, obviously. And then when we went to break, I talked to him briefly. I was like, "Hey, I've got my son is a young kicker. Like, what would you recommend or whatever?" He sent me like this whole pack of like workouts and like stuff to do in the weight room and like all these different things that I put into a 3-ring binder and I gave it to Dylan. And I mean, it was free of charge. He was just like, I want to promote it, blah, blah, blah. I want, your kid to be good. So John Carney's a great guy. Like, he didn't know me from Adam, and he was super, super helpful. So shout out to John Carney, man.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Dylan had the kicking workout regimen of a long time. Like, he was around for like at least 15 years, I think, in the NFL, wasn't he?
He kicked into his 40s,
Maybe longer
I think.
than that. Yeah.
So he was around for a long time. So, yeah, John Carney, man, he's still in great shape, too. So, yeah, I appreciate John. That was really cool. And that was back when he was like middle school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was really neat. Really cool.
Mr. 2.0 asks, who runs the faster 40 time, assuming they both go to the combine, Love or Price?
I'm pretty sure Love is faster than Price. Now, Price is deceiving, I think, with his speed, but I feel like Love is bigger. I feel like Love is faster. I mean, I don't have any details on that, but I would put my money on Love.
I think I would too, like slightly. I mean, they're both very fast, but I would go Love. Be curious to see, combine times. We'll have to keep track of that.
Probably be there together.
Find out.
We'll see.
ND Forever 72 wants to know confidence level. The doomsday scenario does not play out on this college football playoff deal, and the Irish are on the outside looking in. So I think he's, we're talking about doomsday scenarios with like BYU knocks off Texas Tech, Alabama runs the table and gets into, wins the SEC, gets into the SEC championship game, wins the SEC championship game, and then the other would obviously, be like Miami winning this weekend and all these other dominoes falling that somehow allows
dominoes.
them. Yeah. What's your confidence level that doesn't happen, the doomsday scenario?
Well, let's do it. Let's do it out of 10.
1 to 10.
Yep.
Confidence it does not happen.
Like a 9.5, a 9.5. I think there's still an outside chance, but I'm not even convinced. Let's say BYU does beat, Texas Tech, for example, which I do not think will happen. But let's say it does happen. I'm not convinced Texas Tech is still in it.
Really? You think they'd get bounced that far?
Let me rephrase. I'm not sure they would be in front of Notre Dame. They could fall behind Notre Dame.
They could.
Because
they could.
Who have they beaten?
Basically, these are going to be like most of the conference championship games are for seeding. And like, what you have, I mean, that'll be a good question because at that point they're going to have they would have 2 losses.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens.
And look at their resume. Like, who have they beaten per se?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think if they lost, I think there's a conversation that they'd still be in because the committee has made it very clear that championship week is not necessarily going to drop people out. Right. But if BYU is not in and they win, well, now they're in. So somebody's going to have to drop out. Now, I'm not saying it's Texas Tech, but I'm saying somebody drops out. I'm just saying I think there's a discussion that Notre Dame could potentially be higher than Texas Tech at that point.
No, that's true. I think that in that case, they could be higher than Texas Tech, but would BYU vault ahead of Notre Dame? Like, would they take Texas Tech's place?
And they very well could do that, but that doesn't mean Notre Dame drops.
But that's still not going to push Notre Dame far enough. Exactly. I think you're right. I think that like one probably takes the other's place, and they're not both going to be
right.
In the top. That would be basically 7. I don't think they're both going to be in the top 7. I think that in that case, I think you're right that Texas Tech and BYU probably just swap places.
I could see that.
Or maybe even like Texas Tech falls to 10.
Sure.
Like in that case, yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, I still don't think all of the things are going to happen where Notre Dame falls out.
I just think that there are too many things
Right.
that have to happen for it to happen. So my confidence is 9 that the doomsday scenario does not happen.
Right.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that Jeremiyah Love had more net rushing yards against Pittsburgh than Louisville, Boston College, Stanford, and Syracuse combined against Pitt this season.
I think I've used this fill in the blank before, but I'm going to use it again. Heisman-esque. Just is. Like, Pitt was supposed to be one of the top rushing defenses in the country, and he demolished them. I mean, he single-handedly demolished them, obviously with help of his teammates. But yeah, I mean, he did better than all of those teams. It's Heisman-esque, man.
That's exactly right. We talked a lot about Jeremiyah Love yesterday, and I brought this up, and I just thought it was worth mentioning again because the people who want to dump on him, for like, well, who are you doing this against and all that kind of stuff. Pitt had the number 3 rush defense in the nation going into that game. They are currently the number 10 rush defense in the nation. They are still only giving up on average 90 yards per game. Jeremiyah Love had 147 yards against them, 23 carries, 147 yards. He averaged 6.4 yards per carry against Pitt. And those 4 teams I mentioned, Louisville, which is a decent rushing offense, by the way, Louisville averages about 154 rush yards per game. But Louisville, Syracuse, BC, and Stanford combined for 146 yards on 115 carries in those 4 teams. 115 carries, 146 yards. That's 1.2 yards per carry. Love by himself, 23 carries for 147 yards, 6.4 per carry. Again, feels significant since what Love did came against one of the top run defenses in the nation. 6.4 yards per crack. Those 4 teams combined to average 1.2 per carry. See, feels pretty significant to me.
It's extremely significant, yes.
Jack says, thanks to Sean and Vince for doing this great show on Thanksgiving Eve. We appreciate you all very much. Thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate you saying you appreciate.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
We still haven't come up with a better name, though, than Thanksgiving Eve.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might have to do with something about going out to the bars, since it is the busiest bar weekend.
Bar night.
Something along those lines. I'm terrible at coming up with interesting names and things, but something along those lines, right? But I agree. There should be a day because, a lot of schools are out, some businesses are out. This is the start of the holiday for me. You know what I mean? I had this date circled, on the calendar.
I was honestly, it was one of those trying to get motivated for today, Jesse's here. So the holiday is kind of started and all that kind of stuff. And, it's everyone else is out doing their traveling and getting ready and kind of buying the last minute stuff. So good stuff, though. Joe asked earlier, and we didn't get to this in the first hour, Tommy Rees is the rumored favorite for the UCLA job. Do you think he would be a good fit? What do you think about that? There's all this continued talk going on about Tommy Rees and UCLA.
Look, I think Tommy Rees is made for college. Personally, I think that he's a good recruiter. When he had the reins taken off of him by Brian Kelly, and was able to recruit the guys that he actually wanted.
Yeah.
He had some pretty successful quarterbacks commit to him. You know what I mean? So I like Tommy Rees. I think that he could do a good job. You're only as good as the staff that you put together. So, what guys are willing to come work with a very young, because he's still young in terms of being a head coach. What guys are going to be willing to come work with Tommy Rees? I think that would be the biggest thing. But
he would have to assemble a staff.
Yes.
Basically of guys, a lot of guys he's probably either only, worked with maybe for a year or not even worked with, based just on contacts, basically. Yeah.
It would be tough. And UCLA, I don't know what the expectations are. At UCLA right now, they haven't been good for quite a while. You know what I mean? So maybe
don't know what the resources are either. I think that's a big issue.
Yeah, there. Very good point. So what are the expectations? You know what I mean? I think that's part of it as well. Can he kind of go and grow? And it's not going to be an overnight thing. So what does that look? I think it could be a decent job for him. I hate to say this because they're a Big Ten school, but I mean, this is a mid-tier at best, Big Ten school.
Yeah.
It's not a bad first gig.
I mean, it's a program that's had sporadic success over the years, but because of the fact that it is in the Big Ten now, and just all the things that they're kind of up against, like, I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised. Like I guess I could see kind of UCLA's interest in him, but just like the directions that he's gone, leaving Notre Dame to go to Alabama. Obviously, Nick Saban retires, so that changes things very quickly. And then he jumps to the NFL. And the things that we had heard about him when he was here is like the NFL seemed like more of what he wanted to do in his future. So
very true.
I don't know. It would be kind of another left turn, it feels like, if he were to go out to UCLA and back to college. And again, like UCLA has cycled through some guys in a pretty short amount of time. And with them being in the Big Ten, I don't know that I don't know. Maybe he likes that challenge, but feels like it would be an uphill climb for him to leave the NFL to go to a place like UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, he's still only 33 years old. So, there's a lot of...
Is he really? Is that how the older he is?
Yeah. A lot of tread still on that tire, man.
That's not that much older than Jesse. That is crazy.
There you go, man.
To Notre Dame men's basketball lost to Houston 66-56 earlier today in their final game in Las Vegas. Marcus Burton, 19 points to lead the Irish. Jalen Harrelson had 14 points. They lost by 10, and that was after Houston closed the game, hitting just one of its final 11 shots. They had no field goals over the last nearly 6 minutes of the game.
Oof,
man.
I mean, that was a competitive game in the second half. I mean,
they got down by 20. They got as close as 4, and then they didn't get any closer than that.
Yep.
Great effort in the comeback against a good Houston team. Okay. Thanks. Did you have something to say?
I do. So before we went to break, we were talking about Tommy Rees, and we were talking about how he's only 33 years old, right? A little trivia question for you. Who's older, Tommy Rees or Charlie Weiss Jr.?
Wow. That's a great one. I'll say Rees. It's probably going to be Charlie Weiss Jr.
You would be correct that it is Rees.
Okay.
But only by 11 months.
Really?
Yes.
Holy cow.
So maybe, you take all the former Notre Dame guys out to the West Coast. You could have one high-flying offense then.
Man, that's crazy.
So I had to look it up because I was like, well, how long has it been, since Charlie Weiss Jr. was, the little guy on the sidelines of Notre Dame football with his headset on, everybody was all mad about. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And he's been around the block for a little while, kind of riding the coattails of Lane Kiffin and, the whole deal. But hey, man, maybe he's ready to strike out on his own, be his own man.
I'm kind of wondering about that. Like, if Kiffin takes off, does Charlie Jr., does he get his first head coaching job? Maybe
he could get a lower level job, I would think. Yeah. He's got quite the resume. He's worked at Alabama. He's worked at Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
He's done all these things. He's the OC at Florida Atlantic. He's been around the block. I bet you he could get one of these group of 6 head coaching jobs that could come open if that's what he wants to do.
I like how Penn State sports talk guys in here talking trash about.
Seriously. Did you guys overlook every Power 4 team you've played since January?
You overlook UCLA? I mean,
right. I mean, come on, man.
Happy Thanksgiving.
This isn't the year. This isn't the year, man.
Good to have you back. All right, real quick. Your favorite Thanksgiving protein?
This is going to sound weird, and I don't care. Ham. I like ham. I'm not a turkey.
Me too.
Guy.
Me too. I thought it might be a controversial take. We do both, and ham is actually my favorite of the two because of this. Like, I do turkey with the stuffing and the gravy and, like the first plate, but after that, I like the ham sandwiches afterwards.
Yeah, a little leftover action.
Side dish.
Side dish would either be a cheesy potato or a corn. Like, those would be my 2 favorites, probably.
Stuffing is mine. I'm like big on Big on the
Has to be.
stuffing.
People get it wrong though. That's the problem. Like,
Yeah,
it
that's
can't
true.
be too dry.
That's true. But my thing to do that I've started doing, I've got the little waffle maker, and I do stuffing waffles, and then I make sandwiches out of the little stuffing waffles. That's my go-to.
Fascinating.
Yes. Should try it. I actually just went and bought a new waffle maker today because the old one hadn't, I only use it on Thanksgiving, basically. The old one stopped working.
Pooped out on you, huh?
Yeah. Dessert. Favorite Thanksgiving dessert?
I'll be honest with you. I mean, the roll-ups that you talk about sound amazing, but I haven't actually eaten one. I'm easy. I'm a pumpkin pie guy. I love pumpkin pie.
I do like a good pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving as well. I would say pumpkin rolls, pumpkin pie right after. Pecan pie, I think, is underrated as well. My wife's a big pecan pie person.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. I don't think we're going to have time for any of the other stuff that I was going to do. Maybe we can do some Friday for that. Happy Thanksgiving, Penn State Sports Talk. Thanks for showing up now and then, being a good sport. I feel like he's one. He's not a big time troll. Let's put it that way. He shows up. He has a little fun. He doesn't go overboard with this stuff. So
I appreciate that.
Always good to have it. All right, Vince, you and yours have a great Thanksgiving.
You did the same, sir.
Everybody else have a great Thanksgiving. We will be back on Friday, so there's a show to look forward to on Friday. We've got that with Notre Dame and Stanford coming up this weekend. Have a great Thanksgiving. Safe travels if you're out there, and we will talk to you Friday. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.